Welcome to the Love Story Vlog channel, Queen's Story. Now let's enjoy part 4 of the story, Bowing Low. Chapter 6, The Wedding Departure. Chapter 6, Marriage Departure. These past few days, Madame Ding had lost all appetite, her face clouded with sorrow. From morning to night, Xiao stayed by her side to comfort her, and only now did she finally step out from Madame Ding's quarters. Walking alongside her nursemaid, Xuan. The two chatted softly as they strolled. The head of the Chow family was kind and benevolent to the people, earning much affection from them. For the past 2 days, citizens from across the city came to offer their thanks and congratulations, all filled with joy and excitement. Though Xiao had not left the house, she was well aware of the situation. Chuan had heard that news of the alliance between the Chow and Wei families had spread throughout the city, how it would bring peace and avert the horrors of war. The common folk, moved by gratitude, came in droves to express their appreciation. Xuan was still mumbling over this when she suddenly saw her father pacing back and forth in the front courtyard, his face grave. She quickly stepped forward and called out. Seeing her father struggling to speak, Xiao sensed that he had something important to tell her. As soon as they entered the room, she couldn't help but ask about what she had just overheard. Bin furrowed his brow, gazing intently at Xiao before slowly saying, Man, what you heard is true. Father is truly sorry. His beloved daughter had once been promised a happy match, yet things had gone awry. Now, she was about to marry Wei Xiao instead. Thinking about his tender, beautiful daughter having to throw herself into a tiger's den, all alone and unsupported, his heart ached with unspeakable sorrow. Xiao felt a growing sense of unease. Her father's half-spoken words, paired with his troubled expression, made her heart skip a beat. There had been no word from Dajiao, but news of the wedding had already spread throughout the city, and with only 2 days left until the ceremony. Could it be that her father intended for her to marry into the Wei family in her sister's place? But she was already engaged. Father, am I to take my sister's place? She asked hesitantly. Though her father did not answer, Xiao already knew the truth. The shock left her momentarily stunned, her heart pounding wildly. She was completely unprepared. Before, she had urged Daqiao to run away because she couldn't bear to see her sister thrown into a wolf's den. She had also hoped that father could convince her uncle to give up and fight back instead. As for herself, although she had a betrothal, she had planned to dissolve it once the situation settled. Never did she imagine that the Chou and Wei families would still proceed with the marriage, and that she would be the replacement. Man, the Wei family has agreed to the alliance. Their envoy will arrive in a few days. We still haven't found your sister, and your uncle begged me on his knees. Bin offered a few words of explanation before trailing off again. Xiao slowly calmed herself, though her thoughts were still tangled. She stood frozen, unsure of what to say. The engagement with the Liu heir. I'll have to refuse it on your behalf. Man, I'm sorry. Bin's eyes glistened with tears. Xiao was silent for a while. Father, I understand. My mind is in turmoil. Could you give me a moment alone? At last, she looked up at her father, forcing a smile to her lips as she spoke. Seeing his daughter pale and trembling, yet still smiling rather than crying, Bin felt an even deeper pang of guilt. He sighed heavily. After her father left, Xiao could hear him whispering with her nursemaid Xuan outside the door, likely instructing her to take good care of his daughter. A while later, their footsteps faded and silence returned. That night, Qiao learned of the news. Xuan later told Xiao that he had stormed into the hall like thunder, loudly objecting to the marriage before her uncle. Her uncle, having no son of his own, had always treated Xiao as his own child and held him in great regard. But even so, that night, Qiao was struck and thrown out, then barred from the estate. Xiao didn't sleep a wink that night. Her father had always loved her deeply. She knew in her heart that he would never agree to such a thing unless he truly had no choice. Now that the news of the alliance had spread, everyone assumed it was set. The people of the city rejoiced, and as the prefect of Yuanzhou, her father had no room to back out. Like riding a tiger, there was no way down. With the hopes of 200,000 citizens on his shoulders, he could only agree. She had once told Dai Xiao that she was willing to marry Wei Xiao and begged her sister to grant her wish. She had only said that to persuade Da Qiao. Without such a plea, her sister would never have abandoned her duty as the eldest daughter and fled with Bija. She had poured her heart and soul into changing Da Qiao's fate in this life, and had also vowed to never walk down that path herself. Dreams were beautiful, but reality had hit her like a brick, so hard she couldn't even find her footing. Xiao Qiao could only laugh bitterly. Yes, the path had changed, but it had simply led to another dead end. She couldn't run away like Da Qiao, and even if she tried, it would be impossible. It seemed her uncle had learned from the last time. No wonder that wherever she went these past 2 days, there were always 3 or 4 strong women following closely behind. After tossing and turning all night, she finally accepted the cruel twist of fate. The next day, an envoy from the Wei family arrived. His name was Kai Zun, a military administrative officer. Qiao Yue led the Qiao Bin and the household retainers to greet him with full ceremony and hosted him lavishly in the front hall. After 3 rounds of wine, Xiao Yue finally brought up the matter, explaining that the intended bride, their eldest daughter, had fallen gravely ill and was unfit to marry. Fortunately, his younger brother also had a daughter, even more talented and beautiful than the first, and he hoped to substitute her in the alliance. Though Jiangpu had repeatedly assured him that the Wei family would agree, Qiao Yue still harbored doubts. He feared that the other side would see it as disrespect. To his surprise, Kaizun showed no displeasure at all. He remained cheerful and immediately dispatched a messenger to inform his lord and await a reply. Only then did Xiao Yue feel some relief. After the feast, he escorted Kaizun to the official guest residence and instructed the clerks to treat their esteemed guests with utmost care. About 10 days later, the reply arrived. As Jiangpu had said, the Wei family indeed agreed. Qiao Yue was overjoyed. According to ancient customs, a proper wedding involved 6 rites for noble families like the Qiao and Wei households. A wedding from the betrothal gift ceremony to the final marriage celebration would normally take at least half a year. But this time, both families were surprisingly of one mind. They both wished to expedite the marriage. In less than 2 days, the Wei family had already delivered the betrothal gifts. The dowry was worth tens of thousands, including 12 fine horses, just a rank below what the emperor would receive. On the day the gifts entered Bodu City from the North Gate, music accompanied the procession all the way, drawing crowds of onlookers who marveled and praised the spectacle. It was a grand and lively scene. Next, they agreed the bride would be picked up in early August, an auspicious date deemed favorable for weddings and travel. Today was already the 11th month. The day was fast approaching. The entire Qiao household, from top to bottom, was busy with wedding preparations. In weddings, extravagance was a symbol of honor. The dowries for both Da Qiao and Xiao Qiao had been prepared long ago and were already extremely abundant. Now that Da Qiao was gone, in order to further display their wealth and status, the Qiao family added 2 more portions to Xiao Qiao's dowry. On the day it left the city, the procession stretched out in winding splendor for several miles, an utterly majestic scene. Xiao Qiao possessed great wealth. Qiao Bin, feeling guilty toward his daughter and thinking that it would be much easier for her to manage things in the Wei household if she had money at hand, emptied his coffers to gift her even more. Her uncle also contributed generously. In terms of wealth, Xiao Qiao could rightfully be called a little heiress. In the blink of an eye, the wedding day arrived. Wei Xiao did not come in person. Instead, he sent Hu Ben Zhonglang Wei Liang, a member of the Wei family, to fetch the bride. Wei Liang stood 9 feet tall, had a full beard and bulging muscles, and carried a broadsword weighing 36 jin. He was one of Wei Xiao's top 10 men. Brave and battle-hardened, Wei Liang was far from the courteous and amicable figure like Tai Zun, who had attended the marriage negotiations. He appeared aloof and disdainful, especially toward the Chao family. This made Chao Yu rather displeased. But since they had been the ones to initiate the alliance, he dared not show any anger and instead maintained a flattering and respectful demeanor. The following day was the day Xiao Qiao would leave her family for marriage. The gates of the Chao household were thrown open. Red silk decorations were draped inside and out, and everyone put on new clothes to gather and see off the Chao family's daughter. At dawn, Xiao Qiao bathed and stood bare before the mirror. At only 14, she was still far from possessing the mature grace of a grown woman. Yet her round bosom, slender waist that could be held in one hand, and supple curves, combined with smooth, snowy white skin, made it difficult for anyone to look at her directly. She was soon surrounded by nannies and maids, who helped her dress in the proper order. First, a pale red shenyi, as an inner layer, then a black robe over it, a wide belt, ceremonial jar skirts, paired jade pendants, a light silk shawl, and delicate wooden-soled bridal shoes. Lastly, her hair was coiled into a bun and pinned in place, with hairpins adorned with pearl flowers that swayed with her movements. When the dressing and makeup were complete, her features looked graceful and radiant. She was as charming as a jade beauty, elegant yet composed, so stunning that even the attending nannies couldn't help but praise her repeatedly. 4. Shenyi, a traditional form of hand clothing. G-skirts, ancient Chinese, ceremonial skirts that cover the thighs and knees. Paired jade pendants, 2 matching jade pieces, often tied together, symbolizing harmony. Madame Ding gently took Xiao Qiao's hand and carefully gave her many instructions. At last, she gazed at Xiao Qiao in a daze, her eyes gradually reddening. She said, Man, your aunt knows well in her heart. A fan was cruel to abandon her family and you. It may not be a bad thing for you in the long run, but it has caused you hardship. Now that you're marrying into the Wei family in her place, your aunt is grateful to you on her behalf. You two are close as sisters. If you ever hear any news of her, please let me know. It's just so I can have peace of mind. I promise I won't tell your uncle. A smile appeared on Xiao Qiao's face as she agreed. At the appointed auspicious hour, the bridal escort team arrived to take her away. Uncle Qiao Yue and her father, Qiao Bing, were both waiting there. Her younger brother, Xiao Tu, was displeased with the arranged marriage and hadn't even bothered to appear. Qiao Bing was speechless, and even Uncle seemed somewhat emotional. He stepped forward and said a few words to her, mostly advice, telling her to be careful and gentle in serving her future mother-in-law, and so on. Xiao Qiao quickly said goodbye to her father, holding back the tears that threatened to fall. She knelt down and bowed deeply to him. As Qiao Bing helped her up, music began to play outside, urging the bride to depart. Yet Qiao Bing couldn't bear to let go of his daughter. He lingered, holding her hand tightly. Then, the strategist Zhang Pu, who had been quietly standing behind, stepped forward and said with a smile, The Marquis of Wei is a heroic and outstanding man, known throughout the land. For your daughter to marry him is a match made in heaven. What is there to be reluctant about, my lord? Under the eyes of the gathered crowd, Qiao Bing finally gripped his daughter's hand one last time before slowly letting go. Xiao Qiao glanced at Zhang Pu. She knew that, in order to make this marriage happen, her uncle had rewarded him with 200 taels of gold and 2 maidservants. With such rewards and respect, Zhang Pu had been smug and proud in recent days, though one could say he, too, had been a victim in this affair. and the Wei family had indeed been pressuring Wanzhou these past few days. It was hard for her to swallow the anger of being tricked. As she turned away, Xiao Qiao deliberately leaned slightly toward him, and under the cover of her layered robes, she brought her wooden shoe down hard on his foot. The wooden sole was as hard as stone, and Xiao Qiao used her full strength. The stomp landed with no mercy. Jiang Pu suddenly felt a sharp pain in his toes and let out a cry before he could stop himself. When he looked up and saw Xiao Qiao smiling sweetly at him, he instantly understood. As everyone turned to look, seemingly blaming him for his lack of composure, Jiang Pu forced a wry smile, endured the pain in silence, bowed twice as if nothing had happened, and quietly withdrew. At last, Xiao Qiao felt a bit of relief. She looked once more at her father, and remembering her farewell to her younger brother that morning, she sighed quietly and turned to step outside. Outside the Qiao residence, the streets were lined with citizens who had gathered since dawn. Now, seeing Xiao Qiao emerge, so breathtakingly beautiful, they all knelt down and shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens. According to wedding tradition, the groom should personally come to escort the bride to show his sincerity. But Wei Xiao had not appeared at all. Instead, he sent Wei Liang in his place. The people of Dong Commandery were deeply disappointed. The Qiao family's wedding had been highly anticipated by all. They were grateful that Xiao Qiao's marriage had brought an end to looming warfare. They didn't want the Wei family to look down on the daughter of their commander. So today, they showed their support in force. After Xiao Qiao boarded the wedding carriage, the crowds along the road showered it with fruit. Even before leaving the city, the carriage was filled with offerings. 10 miles beyond the gates, there were still citizens kneeling in farewell, calling out blessings from afar. Even the haughty Wei Liang couldn't help but glance back. No one is made of stone. How could anyone remain unmoved? Though she had not wanted this marriage, Xiao Qiao was touched. Suddenly, she vaguely understood the sorrow that Da Qiao had once felt when leaving home. As they traveled beyond the city, she still held in her hand a red apple given to her by a 3-year-old child, and sat in silence, lost in thought. Stop. The carriage carrying Xiao Qiao had already traveled more than 30 li. The scenery on both sides gradually gave way to desolation and wilderness. Suddenly, the sound of a galloping horse came from behind, followed by a loud voice calling out. Aninan immediately ordered his attendants to draw their swords and prepare for defense. But Xiao Qiao recognized the voice. It was her younger brother, Qiao Tu. She quickly explained the situation, and Wei Liang, seeing that it was indeed the young master of the Qiao family, gave the command to sheath the blades and halt the carriage. Xiao Qiao stepped down. Qiao Tu leapt off his horse and rushed to her side. Grabbing her hand, he said, "Sister, there's something I forgot to tell you. I hate myself for being useless, for having to stand by and watch you get married like this. But don't worry. Today I swear to the heavens, one day I will become strong enough to support you. If Wei Xiao does not treat you well, I will come and bring you home. I will never let anyone in this world bully you." He was only 14, still in the early stages of adolescence. His voice was beginning to break, and the first soft traces of a moustache had just begun to grow on his upper lip. And yet in this moment, he spoke with such courage and resolve. His voice rang out clear and loud. Each word was carried by the wind and reached Wei Liang's ears. Wei Liang said nothing. He merely gave a faint, indifferent smile. Xiao Kao hadn't expected her brother to chase after her all this way, just to say these words. She remembered her past life, how, in order to help her and Liu Yan escape, he had sacrificed himself. The tears she had held back all morning could no longer be restrained. At last, they began to fall. "Atu," she whispered. "I understand. I will live well. From now on, please be filial to father in my place." Qiao Tu nodded firmly. Seeing the deep bond between the siblings, Wei Liang finally lost his patience and called out, urging them to move on. Xiao Qiao let go of her brother's hand and gently told him to return. Then she climbed back into the carriage, and the procession resumed. Standing by the roadside, Qiao Tu slowly faded into a dark speck in the distance, until at last, he disappeared completely from view. Xiao Qiao turned her gaze forward again. In the dim wintry light at the edge of the horizon, a lone wild goose soared southward through the sky.